Welcome to the fish tank.
Hey everybody, Fishman here. A little while back, I had put together a Pothos planter for the rack system in my fish room. And what I had done for that is I had bled off a little bit of water from the refill to flow through the Pothos planter to help, filter or actually just to get the Pothos to grow better. And I thought it was a pretty interesting idea. It worked really well. And what I wanted to do was see if I can adapt that sort of thing to any of my clients' tanks. So what I've done here, as I just saw, is I built a small acrylic box. And this is a small daycare tank. I think it's about 33 gallons. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to immerse this in the tank. And I'm going to use the hang-on back filter, or at least part of the flow from the hang-on back filter, to flow through this and to, first off, help filter the water in the tank, and also to help the Pothos grow better. Although, in all honesty, I don't think there's anything you can do to have Pothos not grow. So I have to put the camera down for a sec to put this underneath the filter because it's kind of hard to hold and do the thing both at the same time. But this is the idea. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have I cut a notch out of the box. And so part of the flow from the hang-on back is going to go through this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a piece of Pothos, put it in here. This is the Pothos plant. The funny thing about this is how this came about is kind of funny in the sense that the client says, you know, it'd be kind of cool if we could have some of this in the aquarium. Is there any way of doing it? And coincidentally, I had just done that other video, so I figured, well, sure, not a problem. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pack this with some gravel. It was just spare gravel I pulled out of another tank that I had kicking around, so recycling. And what I'm going to do here is just have that flow through there. And the Pothos is only going to grow from the room light. There's no extra light on it. And I just wanted to see how well this is going to work. So you can see the flow going through there. And what I'm going to do in... come back in a couple months and I'll show you what it looks like. Through the miracle of video. This is a couple months later. You can see you got some algae growing on the surface of the gravel there. The water's still flowing quite nicely. And the Pothos is actually doing quite well. Not growing as fast as in my fish room because there's less light. Just ignore that filter off to the right there. That was put on because I'm doing a refit on one of the other aquariums, and I had to do reseal and that sort of stuff, so I wanted to keep that filter active, and so I just left it there. So I actually really worked quite well. I'm actually really quite happy with how it all turned out. It is maintenance free. I don't have to do anything for it, and like I said, the Pothos is growing. At some point, of course, I'm going to have to prune it and that sort of thing, but that's all just minor stuff. And that leads us to this version. The other one was easy to put together, works quite well, and I wanted to see if it's possible to put together one it's a little bit more elaborate, let's just say. The other one fits quite easily inside any sort of existing situation. This one is actually going to be not only a planter, but also is going to be the entire filtration system for a tank. I have a client who's been with me for quite a long time, and they wanted something a little bit more elaborate, mostly because, again, it's another daycare, and they wanted something that will be partially educational as well. So what I'm going to do here is, this is going to fit somewhat inside the tank and above. So what will happen is, it'll become more clear as we go along. The water is going to get pumped out of the tank, up through this first chamber you see here, through that hole. And it's going to go through a sponge, and then it's going to go through a long trough of mixed media. And what's going to happen is that media is going to, first off, help filter the tank, and also it's going to be a planter for a bunch of plants. Unlike the last one, which just had Pothos in it, I'm going to try a number of different plants in this one. Now this bracket I'm gluing on here is the means by which this is going to be held above the aquarium. The other one just sort of fit on the back. This is going to slide just inside the rim, and I need something to hold it out of the water, and also keep it nice and level. So because this is fairly heavy, it's going to need a number of these brackets. I mean, this is almost 3 feet long when it's filled with gravel, rock, and most importantly water. It's going to have a fair amount of mass to it, and this is acrylic, so it does need to have some extra support. So what I'm going to do here is, after I glue these on, is I'm going to take a small piece of scrap acrylic I have. I don't really want people to be able to see, this is going to be the front of it. I don't want that to be your view, which is going to be gravel with algae growing on it and sponges and that sort of stuff. Well, your standard filtration system. So I'm going to mask that by gluing that on the front. Now, to get the water out of the tank, it's going to go up through these fittings. I use them many times on pretty much all the builds. If I don't need that much flow, I use these half-inch fittings, and it's just going to screw on. When I screw it on for real, there's going to be some silicone there just to keep it from dripping. But again, like I said, because it's going to be inside the tank, a bit of drip is not going to be an issue. Also, I think probably what I'm going to do, depending on how this turns out, is I may have some moss hanging down the front of that black acrylic and have water actually dripping down into the tank for some extra effect, but all that is for for future. So this is just to bring it down to the tank, and I made that bushing to adapt it to for this pump to fit onto the piece of half-inch pipe, and that's just going to be the input. I've started using these new pumps. I'm actually quite happy with them. The old pumps, as you've heard from a couple of my other videos, I've been quite unhappy with a lot of their smaller ones, so I've been switching over to this, and so far so good. The other piece of pipe you saw there is just the return. Not really necessary, but I just want to direct the flow a bit more, so it'll cause a bit of breakup on the surface. And here I am, I'm just going to glue this on. It's not necessary to glue it as thoroughly as a lot of the other things because it's just needs to be tacked on. And what I'm going to do is, you see that little bit of blotchiness on the top. I'm going to remove that by, first off, I'll run it through the table saw just to even out the two pieces of plastic so that they're exactly at the same height, and then I'll just polish the top. I'm going to leave that part off because well, this video is going to be quite long as it is. I think in the end it's about 13 minutes altogether, and I'm just going to cut out some of the stuff that's been done before and just show you kind of the newer things that are being done in this particular build relative to all the others. Now, this filter also is going to have one other thing that's different, and that is it is going to be lit. So instead of lighting the aquarium like a canopy sitting right on top, this is going to be held above. And also to show you that a lot of these things that I plan out don't necessarily work out the first time. I had tried a great number of different ways of doing this, and I decided to leave a little bit of this in because I don't want you to think that everything I throw together just works out perfectly. There was actually a lot of fiddling with this and trying to come up with a way that would look the best. And sometimes that does take a fair amount of effort. That was my cat there. Oh yeah, here, sorry. He's going to interrupt here shortly. My original intent... Oh, alright, sorry. We'll give him his pet first, and then we'll get back to the build. Every now and then he'll come down, he'll bug me until I give him a good scratch. This particular time was kind of funny because he got so involved and he almost fell off the table. So, anyway. My original intent for this, and actually you recorded a great deal of it, was to make a square fitting for it. I was going to, as you can see in this one piece here, cut it out and make a nice square notch and then have that fit together. But I couldn't get rid of this little round bit, and that left a gap. And I thought it looked rather unsightly, so I ended up making the 45-degree angle cuts instead. But that took some fiddling as well to get it at exactly at 45, so there you go. Those are my offcuts for this particular job, just trying to get this to work so that it looked as even as possible. Now, I can't put this light right on top of the filter because, well, the plants need to grow at least a little bit, so I need to make some arms to raise it up above. So these little brackets are going to do that. And I made them out of clear acrylic because I don't really want it to be something that you're going to have to look at too much. And clear acrylic's the best way of doing that. Now, as far as the height of this above the filter, it was kind of a guess. I went with something that was fairly reasonable in number. I mean, I don't know. It was just, like I said, I didn't know what plants I was going to put into this at this point. But I wanted something that looked nice, and I wanted it also to give enough height that at least can grow some small plants. Now, because this is a daycare, and actually just in general, I decided I wanted to fasten this a little more tightly to the light. So what I've done here is I've just drilled and tapped both fittings so that I can put these screw-on fittings in here just to make sure it doesn't move anywhere. Now, the actual end result, I didn't. You're going to see a fair amount of excess here for me to get my fingers around to tighten it. I managed to trim that down quite a bit so it doesn't show up as much. You'll see it here in 2 seconds. There you go. Yeah, I cut that down quite a bit because it looked a little obtrusive. But what it needs to do, and that is hang the thing on tightly so that it doesn't just fall off. So here it is. I've just stuck it on the aquarium. I haven't done anything other than just get it to flow, and that's the way I'm going to leave it for a little while. I want to check out the flow rate, make sure everything works well, and then what I'm going to do is put in the media, and then I'm going to let that run for a while because it has to cycle. And I'm going to use old media like the other time with the other planter just to give it a little bit of a kickstart. But you're going to see the water goes up through here, goes across. You can see the little whirlpool at the other end where it goes back down. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the media in and let that run. And then, like I said, after that's cycled, here it is here, I am going to... one other thing I did is, you see the little black nozzle there? I found the water just shooting straight up was kind of irritating, so I took a little piece of pipe and an end cap, drilled some holes in it, and now what it does is it shoots the water sideways into the sponge, and I find that flows a lot better. And you can see it does collect an awful lot of dirt. The other funny thing is as this little clip proceeds, is watch the dirt in the filter. It settles out so quickly. It's really quite cool. And you can see I went with some lava rock and some crushed gravel, which is really quite good to look at. So, and now what we're going to do is we're going to fast forward a couple months, put some plants in, and you're going to see how they're growing. So if you like this style of video, please like and or subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you think of these two things, and we'll maybe make some adjustments to it. Because this particular filter here, it actually filters quite well, but I think there's room for a great deal of room for improvement on this particular one. So here we are 2 months later. I have this is a spider plant. It's doing quite well. It's growing quite well, and there's a pothos, of course. You have to have pothos. And this is you can also see some java moss there and some other stuff I want to do. But the spider plant to the right did not take. I'm not sure why. Who knows? But again, I want to try other stuff in here as well, so that's fine. I'll just replace that with something else. So anyway, like I said, it's been running a couple months now. The tank is nice and clean and healthy. Unfortunately, I did not bother filming any of that part of it. I was too focused on this. But anyway, it seemed to turn out okay. Anyway, thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video, and bye for now.